Hi, we're here just talking with Daniele Evans. Is that right?
That's right.
And she's here to deliver a democracy roundtable today. Tell us the title.
The title is "Can Citizen Juries Mitigate Ideological Polarization?"
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah.
So, Daniele, you're a senior fellow at the National Constitution Center.
That's right. Yeah.
Can you tell us just a little bit about the center, what it does, and then about your role?
Absolutely. The National Constitution Center is a sort of America's town hall. It has a mandate from Congress to disseminate information about the Constitution on a nonpartisan basis. We have several different functions. We have a physical museum space that tells visitors the story of the founding and walks you through the history of the Constitution from the founding era until today. We have an online presence where we do podcasts. We have a daily blog. We just built a interactive constitution which convenes liberal and conservative commentators to write pieces setting forth what they agree upon and what they disagree about with respect to each clause of the Constitution. And then we also do traveling town halls or actual physical programs where we bring together people to debate contemporary constitutional issues before live audiences.
So give me just an example.
Well, today in San Francisco we have a traveling town hall debate about a case that was brought in California where the plaintiffs claim that California's laws regulating the hiring and firing of teachers violate the California Constitution and the U.S. Constitution because they effectively discriminate against minority and low-income students, because they make it very hard to fire ineffective teachers, and the ineffective teachers therefore get shuffled to poorer schools.
I see.
And the court below held that that's right, that the laws that govern the hiring and firing of teachers do violate the Constitution, and we're having a debate about whether that's a good holding or not. We regularly have these kinds of debates in public settings.
And you're right next to Independence Hall, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so just go right on down, just go a little north from there, and there you are. So when you're in Philly, go down there. So what do you do for the center?
For the center, I'm a senior fellow in constitutional studies, so I help a lot with overseeing the content of all of the programming I just described.
I see.
Whether it's helping with building the interactive constitution, whether it's not picking guests for a town hall, preparing for the content of those events, helping with the content of museum exhibits. We recently had the first ever museum exhibit on the Constitution and gay rights, which was a history of the gay rights movement in constitutional law. And because we are dedicated to being nonpartisan, everything has to present both sides of the debate, and we have to make sure that the exhibits convey the sort of feelings and views of both sides, and same with our podcasts and all our programming, and I'm responsible for
sounds really interesting.
that kind of content.
So, all right, so let's talk about what you're going to talk about here at Penn State. Some of your research, you're trained as a lawyer, and your research has kind of looked at the impact of motivated reasoning, cognitive bias on judges and their decision making. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, on both judges and lay people.
And juries.
We've done some work on judges, actually one of the first studies that's been done on several hundred judges, but mostly we've studied lay people.
Oh, I see.
We use a national polling firm to survey large samples of the population, usually 2,000 or 3,000 lay people, nationally representative sample.
So what have you found out through this research?
We study the way that people's cultural backgrounds shape their clearly cultural identities, and the way that cultural identity becomes intertwined with a particular position on contemporary cultural issues such as abortion, gun control, climate change. And then we look at the way that a person's cultural values influence their perception of facts or evidence. Sometimes that can be facts or evidence that's consequential in a legal dispute. And I can give a more concrete example in a moment. Sometimes it's facts or evidence that's consequential in a public policy dispute. An example of that is with climate change. We often we debate about the evidence of whether climate change is man-made, and there is sort of a battle of the studies where one side says, no, I proved it, and the other side says, no, I did. What we're studying is rigidity or people's unwillingness to update their beliefs in light of new information. And the fact that that unwillingness is connected to your social cultural identity. In a legal case, that might come out in a slightly different context where you might have a protester who's protesting outside an abortion clinic, and the law, because the First Amendment protects people's rights to protest, only allows you to break up a protest if the protester threatened or physically obstructed or basically put another person at risk of danger.
Right.
Because at that point it crosses the line between protected speech and harmful conduct. So when we show potential jurors, a video of a protester and say that they're protesting outside an abortion clinic, whether the jurors see dangerous conduct or protected expression, whether they see the person, hitting or pushing or just speaking, depends very much on what their cultural background feels about abortion.
The biases that they bring to this evaluation.
Right.
So you're demonstrating in law, I think, the same kind of reality that people see every day in the way media present different points of view and talk radio versus MSNBC and Fox News, that sort of thing. Would you agree with that?
I think that's probably right. I think what we're doing is isolating the mechanism that reinforces the effect you're talking about, which is people have cultural identities, and their sense of who they are and where they belong in society is attached to a particular position. For instance, I'm a left-leaning social democrat.
Right.
I've always thought that gun control is a good idea, and that has become a piece of my identity, such that if someone were to show me a bulletproof study saying that owning guns makes people safer, everybody in America should own a gun, it would be very hard for me to credit that study, because I'd be giving up a piece of myself.
Right.
And we're showing that the way that process happens makes people very rigid, and it also leads them to seek out evidence and people who are similar to them, their own view. And what you're talking about with the Fox News and the media is exactly that effect, I think.
Right. And this is a ubiquitous. This is a human thing. This
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is as I said, this plays out in law, but it also plays out in our broader disputes about climate change and gun control and everything else.
So your presentation today is around research that you've been doing about what do we do about this,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So can you say more about that?
Sure, yeah. We've been working on different ways that we might mitigate this kind of it's called motivated reasoning effect, and make people more open to crediting evidence that threatens a cultural identity or people who disagree with them on culturally salient issues. And one possibility that I've been studying has been using juries or small group deliberations. And the questions I'm asking are whether being a part of a jury, sitting down in a small group and talking about a question like this, makes people more open to crediting the views of those who see things differently. And then a second question I'm asking is whether deliberations could be structured in a way that makes that effect even stronger, by having each person in the group take a turn first stating their own position on the issue, and then go around and state the strongest argument against their position, and then explain why they think one or the other prevails. So I'm testing out two different types of deliberations, one where people just talk about what the outcome in a culturally controversial case should be, and one where people talk in a more structured way, where everyone says, here's what I think, and then everyone else goes around and says, here's the strongest argument against my position, here's what I think about that argument. And the idea is to see whether one or both of these make people less inclined to perceive the other side as being biased, whether either one mitigates that effect, and whether one does so better than the other.
Okay, and? Or do you know the answers yet?
I don't think I know the answers in a way that is methodologically sound because
Yeah.
I've done a few pilot studies with high school students.
I see.
But it seems like the state the opposite deliberation, the one where you have to
Right,
say the
right.
strongest counterargument, does have some effect in making students less likely to think that a person who holds a view opposite of their own is motivated by bias. And this is sort of a different application of citizens' juries or juries generally. Usually we think about
Right.
them as the goal of a jury is to reach a decision and
Mhm.
influence an outcome. The idea here is that the benefit is actually to the participants, even if they don't reach a unanimous view,
Right.
and even if they don't influence the outcome of anything, they have a chance to understand what is the neutral standard that the law is applying here,
Mhm.
and that people can disagree about how that neutral standard applies in good faith,
Right.
without participating in
Without
an ideology.
considering the other side to be either evil or stupid or both.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. That's really interesting. Well, welcome to Penn State. Thanks for coming, and look forward to hearing your talk.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For having me.